Okay, the hour of 7 o'clock having arrived, the new meeting time for the Water Quality Management Committee, January 15th, 2015, will come to order.
7 p.m.
7 p.m.
You said the new meeting time.
Follow-up discussion on the Quistit MEP report. Okay.
At our last meeting, which seems also last year.
Last year, it was a month ago.
Discussing Quistit in December. We went through the report and one question really surfaced, and that had to do with stormwater. And so the update to the Quistit Harbor overview that we did has to do with stormwater. I contacted two engineers that are familiar with the area, Holmes and McGrath, and Dave Martin, who worked on the boatyard. And both of them confirmed that there have not been any stormwater BMPs, that is best management practices, that remediate nitrogen in and around Quistit Harbor. So there are a couple of places along the road and at the boatyard where there is stormwater that gets into the harbor, but as we talked about from the report, it's a small fraction, about 2 or 3% of the overall load, depending on how you look at it. 5 or 8%. So 5% of the overall load and 8% of the local control load. Small numbers in the 20s as we go through, looking at the number. Well, I didn't actually, did I put the fertilizer cost? Yeah, I didn't put the number in, sorry. But it's on the order of the fertilizer, so it's around 17 or so kilograms of nitrogen that we'll be looking at. Small number, nothing's been done. But I think to update our understanding of that watershed, there are no BMPs. And that was really the one question that I had in my notes that had come up.
Any other comments or questions from committee members? Ron.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. I'm having a little difficulty looking at the way some of these calculations are being done. In looking at TMDL, we're talking about total maximum daily load, and versus total TMAL, which is total maximum annual load, or something like this. So the regulation is TMDL to an extent. So we have an important aspect here is working within the regulatory frameworks, and then looking at if you look at the history of TMDLs, you've got like cadmium, for example, that might be coming in. It's toxic all the time. It's a problem all the time coming in, and therefore there's a TMDL, total maximum daily load of cadmium, that then would be diluted and it would be a safe level, for example. We're dealing with nitrogen. Nitrogen is so different because it's a nutrient. So we have a dynamic ecosystem issue versus a direct toxicity issue. So when we look at the calculations and we start thinking about and numbering out the total annual load, it doesn't correlate to the regulation. And actually then I made a bunch of graphs, but I can pass one around. But this one is just looking at Wild Harbor as an example. I've done them for a few others, but these just sort of give an idea of when the seasonal impact needs to be dealt with. In the definition of a TMDL, the seasonal dynamics, according to EPA, that's enough. It's a real simple thing, but the seasonal dynamics need to be considered as part of the dynamic. And so when we start looking at these things, to take like 5,000 kilograms a year for Little Pond and say, okay, well, we can take out 250 kilograms, whatever it is with shellfish, it's still, on the off season, we still have that load coming in. We're not dealing with the daily load problem. So the daily load really requires what's coming in per day, and that's what needs to be controlled. It's not seasonal, it's every day. So, as we look at these things, I think that it gets into issues over with TMDL impacts. I mean, this would also affect inlet widening. But let's say, for example, with inlet widening or shellfish, we were able to reduce so much nitrogen with inlet widening. That would require, for example, with Bourne's Pond, and we'll talk about this in a couple weeks, I guess, a reduction or change in the TMDL for Bourne's Pond. Because then we can meet that with the upstream inflow, because we'll basically have taken out a good chunk of the nitrogen with widening the inlet, or a good amount of it. So therefore, we'd have to do less upstream, which is the whole idea of inlet widening, right? So with shellfish, it's the same kind of thing. But you can't basically take, if we work with the regulation is a daily load, is that in December, January, February, whatever it is, we have that load coming in. And so with the shellfish question, we have to say, okay, well, is it a seasonal adjustment? And if we're looking at nutrients, it's different from toxic metals and things. So I think that as we go through this, we need to consider that and work with the regulators in trying to understand really how far we can go with this. Now, so far they're listening to us about say, shellfish. I mean, basically the targeted watershed management plan for Little Pond Watershed has been approved, and it has that as a dynamic in it. But it won't affect the daily load in December. Today would not be affected by shellfish, whether it's wild reefs or whatever it is. It's dormant. So therefore, that load would still be there. It just wouldn't be a problem. So I think we need to be careful about, and I've made this looked at it this way myself, but looking at an annual load doesn't match the regulation. And so how we contend with that. But then the real question comes in is that when is there really a problem? And that's a bigger hurdle to work with. Because the problem is going to be, for the most part, as this would show, is that it would be in the warmer months of the year. That's when we have the problem. The water is crystal clear now. It's loaded with nutrients because there's nothing stopping the groundwater, the septic load coming in, which is, a good chunk of it, or any other load coming in, but it's not a problem now. The water is clear, the oxygen is high, it's really good. There's no odor, it's in good shape. It's when it warms up. So I think that when we start looking at these, we may need to not to take an annual chunk or the annual sum, which is what all of these analyses are showing, taking an annual sum and saying, okay, if we deal with 1,000 kilograms in the summer, we've met the regulation. Well, we haven't really met the regulation because in the winter you still got the load coming in. So that I think is something that needs to be factored in. So anyway.
Okay. Jerry.
I got your email, and I think it's easy to misinterpret the term seasonal variation. TMDLs are based on annual loads. There's been a federal court case that has said that, the Anacostia case, and I've sent it around. The state will not approve a permit with a seasonal load in it. I think you're taking some simple words. I know you don't believe me.
No,
wait a minute.
Okay.
Send the state
Yeah.
a question, and EPA. Will you approve a seasonal load for a permit? I think I know the answer is, but you don't believe it.
No, I'm not. Okay, thanks, Jerry. It's okay. Eric.
John, you want to get on that?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at West Falmouth Harbor,
Yeah.
our discharge permit for the West Falmouth plant says that we can put, 9,400 pounds of nitrogen into that watershed annually. They don't say how much per day. They just say that our cumulative load into that harbor is 9,400 pounds per year.
No, actually, they do say. They say that it cannot exceed 10 milligrams per liter effluent.
Maximum.
Maximum, right, per day. So it's based on those figures, but it really comes down to, or not even per day, it's 10 milligrams per liter, but we have to hit 3 as an average. So the thing is that they are in a way saying the maximum is 10 that could be discharged for any period of time. as long as we meet, the
No,
three.
we're
That's
talking
not-
about apples and
That's not,
oranges again.
that's a regulatory failure.
That's talking about what we're discharging to the discharge ponds.
Yeah.
Has to be no
Right.
more than 10
Yes.
and should be average of 3. It doesn't say what's getting to the Sentinel station in the West Falmouth Harbor.
That's a rate, not a mass. I mean, a
Right,
mass
right.
is kilograms.
That-
Milligrams per liter is a concentration. They're totally different.
Right, it's a rate. So the thing is that if it's 10 milligrams per liter is the maximum, then the daily load would be 10 times whatever, 24, whatever that number of gallons per day is. And that's the maximum according to the permit. That's what the permit says. And it cannot exceed 10. It should not exceed 10 or in violation.
I think
You're missing,
you're missing
Ron.
what's going on. Ron.
yeah, that there are different kinds of constraints with the permit
Right,
on plant operation, let's call it that
Right.
way. Okay, so one of the constraints is at the end of the year, no more than 900 and
Whatever the number.
whatever that number is,
Exactly, yeah.
kilograms can have been released from that plant, regardless of what happened on a day-to-day
Right.
basis. Okay, you max out at that.
but you can't go over 10.
Now, let me finish. That's constraint number one.
Yeah,
Okay, the second constraint has to do with shorter term discharges. And so in any given maximum day, okay, so that's just a particular flow. As we know, there's variability. Okay, so they're saying you can be variable, but your overall annual average has to be 3. And in no day can you be over 10, or that's a
Right.
violation. So both statements are true, okay?
Right.
But they're different kinds of constraints.
right, no, I agree,
Okay.
No,
All right.
I totally
And
agree with that.
So to follow the
Yeah.
key piece, when we get to estuaries downstream, is how many kilograms can be discharged to this estuary before you start overloading it. So the maximum load is a very important number. And now, see, you just double check me. So we have a maximum number of kilograms that can be discharged to a particular watershed.
Right.
West Falmouth, well, any of the watersheds, okay. Then they do math. And that gets us to TMDL, which is on a daily basis, right?
The way the model is run, the model is run on a daily basis. They figure out on a day how much can go in to achieve the TMDL.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of two sides of the same coin.
Same coin.
So
I mean,
in essence, it's.
If you look up the definition, the EPA definition, it's very clear of a TMDL.
No, what's the definition of seasonal variation?
I'm not talking about, no, I'm not worried about,
I'm talking about the EPA TMDL approval letter. There's a definition of seasonal variation.
no, I'm not, exactly.
definition?
But what I'm saying is that a TMDL is a calculation of the maximum amount of a pollutant that a water body can receive and still meet water quality standards. Okay?
Can I
So-
interrupt for just a second
so
to
that's-
clarify?
Yeah.
The clarification. Hi, well,
Hi.
Hi.
Pull up a chair.
Enjoying the argument.
Well, this isn't so much.
Discussion.
So the idea is that the hydrodynamic model that SMAS developed and is run has a Sentinel station concentration in the
Right.
water body that needs to be reached in the right season. So or whenever, throughout the year. That number, that concentration, it's usually 0.35 milligrams per liter for most Sentinel stations, is
0.45,
then loaded. You know, the estuary is loaded in the model. This is what the model does. The model puts mass of nitrogen until the model shows that the mass that's being loaded meets the concentration at the Sentinel station, and that gives you TMDL. That
Right.
says that you cannot exceed this mass going in on a daily basis.
And that's all given the flushing, the benthic
The
flux,
whole
all that whole sort of
hydrodynamic
thing
model,
is
yep,
in
the
there.
whole enchilada.
But let's take an example
Well,
where,
actually, you know what?
Yeah.
You just sent us something at 4:35 this afternoon.
Yeah, right.
Which relates to all this. And I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
And I responded.
I'm not sure everyone's had a chance to digest it.
Right.
And it's probably better that they do before we keep on talking tonight, because it isn't.
Right.
You know, we need some
well,
time.
it's on this, I just think that this is something
Yeah.
we need to delve into further and get clarification, because it seems to me maximum daily load is what that is from, and that's what's coming in, basically, and not so much what inlet widening is doing or shellfish or something like this. It's a loading rate. And, yeah.
It's a good point for
Yeah.
discussion.
Right.
But this is not a good time to be doing it, because we all just got it, and
Well, it's more has to do with
Yeah.
the way the calculations that are on the board in front of us.
fair
are done.
enough.
And
May I have
maybe
a
a little
final
more
word?
research.
A final word, yes.
Okay. As I have, Ron's made this point all along before, so it's something we're familiar with. I think that the problem we're facing is that in the past, we didn't have any major thing we wanted to do which had so blatantly a seasonal load only. And we're asking the question, could we get more credit for this somehow, since it is a seasonal load and it comes at the right time of year when it could lower the I think that's the question we're facing is, according to the regulations, we can't do it now. Is it possible for us to consider presenting them the facts that this is, as a matter of fact, something that's entirely seasonal, that could they give us a little bit of help on giving a little bit more effectiveness? If we can show that it has a certain effect, can we get more effectiveness from that?
We got to show the effect first.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Got that. All right, this may come up again in a different way, because the next topic is the West Falmouth MEP report. And potential alternative technologies for this watershed.
This is the big report. I just have the other one.
No.
And here we have West Falmouth, and you all have a copy of the slides in front of you if you want to take notes on
And
it.
for the benefit of the press, West Falmouth Harbor, the Falmouth treatment plant is upstream, adjacent to that, and it has caused a great impact on West Falmouth Harbor. West Falmouth Harbor has been more studied and subject to more regulation and more concern, frankly, than any other water body in the town. So it's going to be a more complicated conversation, but it's here it is.
Lots of things. So we're gonna continue on in the format that we have been going down the west coast of Falmouth. We're now at West Falmouth. There's been much more study than just the MEP report, but just to start out, a little bit of context. This is a map of the West Falmouth watershed with the sub-watersheds. And I think some key areas to note, which are much harder to see on a tiny screen than on a big screen at home, are the treatment facility. At least if I can get this down. This is the wastewater treatment facility.
It's not, you're not showing
Oh, I'm
us.
not showing up there. Well, there's,
We kind of know where it is.
well.
It's got to be
It's right
farther
there.
north.
There you go, right there.
There you go.
There you go.
There's the
Yes.
wastewater
Yeah.
treatment facility.
Right.
And this is the technology park. Those are two sort of nice rocks, big features to look at. This obviously is West Falmouth Harbor. This is where Snug Harbor is. And that's, as you'll see, where the Sentinel Station Mashapaquet Creek is right here. Crocker Pond is here. And Ballymead is here. It's really interesting to me that from aerial views, all golf courses look about the same. There's Ballymead. And here's the watershed. So looking at that, I then have an aerial view so that we can, that doesn't look great. It looks great on my screen, but not here. The technology park, again, is here, smack dab in the middle, with other things besides the tech park around it. This is sort of the Thomas Landers Road is coming along here. This is 28. Wastewater treatment facility is here. And then we've got not so dense residential development sort of in this area. 28A is coming this way, and this is 151. So that's just the where we are in Falmouth. Here we have a location of all the monitoring locations that were used to develop the MEP report, with the Sentinel Station there at Snug Harbor and Mashapaquet Creek. So that is still today the Sentinel Station for TMDL compliance. And when the MEP, you guys all have copies of the whole report. It was done in 2004. The TMDL was developed by Mass Estuaries and then codified in a TMDL by the EPA. I'm not inventing this methodology. I'm simply reporting on a methodology that the regulators have already established and have established for decades. So that's what the TMDL is, based on the modeling approach that I just mentioned. And if you look at the present watershed load that the MEP report calculated and the current and the TMDL load, so you've got the load that's going in today, so to speak, today being the day that this was published.
When was that? 1920?
2004.
2004.
Yep, and it's on the cover of the report. And you look at what the threshold should be to achieve the water quality concentration at the Sentinel Station, you see that it's about an 8,500 kilogram per year load reduction. Now, the next slide I think is this slide is, one of these things is not like the others. This slide is different. This pie chart is different than any other pie chart we've seen, because the dark green, that beautiful green color, is actually not septic load. We're used to seeing the big rock in this being a septic load. But in the case of West Falmouth Harbor, it was found that at the time, before any upgrades to the treatment plant or anything, it was the wastewater treatment facility load that was contributing the lion's share of the nitrogen. Not even a close second was septic, and a little bit for lawn fertilizer and impervious surfaces. So
The septic 21% on there, I can't.
the septic, yeah, you have, can you?
Yes,
I can't tell from
yes.
23%.
Steve, can I make a
21.
or
nitpicking
21,
suggestion?
Yeah,
That
okay,
on-
yeah.
On this and the quiz, all these ones with pie charts, you could redo the key with lines or arrows.
I could.
Because either in a Xerox where
Yeah.
4 of them are white,
Yeah.
or on the screen,
You can't
where
really
who
see
can
them.
tell the difference between
I
the
know.
colored.
Alright.
Well, all you need to do is draw lines or put the words
Okay,
right
that's a
along
great
with the
idea.
percentage.
I like that idea. That's an excellent suggestion. I was mostly thinking that for if anybody were really studying this, they ought to be looking at it on a computer, and then you see it. I mean, you see it much more clearly. You can search for stuff. But I think the hatch marks is an excellent way to translate this into black and white in a much more effective
Not
way.
hatch mark, just draw lines from the word to the piece of pie.
Oh, I thought you meant.
Or move the words over next to the percentages.
Uh-huh. Yep,
So you don't have
label
to
the
do any
percentages.
work. It's
Label
just
the
right there for you.
percentages. Yep, that's an even better idea. All right, note to self. Okay, so that was the snapshot or the picture up to 2004. But since then, there have been a number of other studies done in West Falmouth. The Mass Estuaries report was the first one, and then the TMDL was issued by the EPA. Then a groundwater discharge permit was issued for the wastewater treatment facility, given the load that it was contributing. There was some history that I don't need to get into, but an agreement was reached on that discharge permit. And we have included West Falmouth Harbor in the approved Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. So all of those planning documents cascaded from the Mass Estuaries project report and are sort of the current events, if you will, for West Falmouth. One of the things I wanted to, Jerry actually, very thankfully to me, provided us with some of the key features of the groundwater discharge permit. And it also helps us mark sort of the progress we've made in that. The TMDL compliance for West Falmouth Harbor is due December 2016, which seemed like a long way off, but now it's in 2 years. Right? So that's a requirement. The maximum discharge from the 2013 groundwater discharge permit is 570,000 gallons per day, annual average, and 3 milligrams per liter as practicable. So those are requirements, and as practicable is because there is some variation. There was a requirement for 30,000 gallons per day to be reduced. II is infiltration inflow, and that's the water that gets into the system that doesn't need to. And that is in progress. That was part of what town meeting funded a year and a half ago or so. Yeah. And that's in progress. We were required to include West Falmouth in the CWMP, the town was, and the town did. And there was a requirement for an optimization plan for nitrogen reduction. In other words, to make sure that that 3 milligrams per liter is being met as often as is humanly possible. And that's been completed. And then monitoring the actual effluent discharge through the installation of flow meters to get a really accurate read was part of the requirement. And those flow meters, my understanding is they've been installed. And then the feasibility of a PRB was to be part of this, and that was part of the CDM Smith study. There is a permit renewal in process, because these are every 5 years or so you get a groundwater discharge permit renewal, is my understanding. And so that's where we're at with the discharge permit.
One thing
Oh,
on the discharge
to
permit,
by all means.
Go
the
ahead.
optimization plan is to optimize what we have now at the treatment plant.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, you know, we're hoping that it says we can do 3 milligrams per liter, but it's just run the treatment plant as best you can with certain caveats that the state wanted us to do.
Okay.
So that's what the
But
what
it's
the
done.
optimization plan was.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Virginia?
Monitor effluent discharge, flow meters installed. I think we should have semicolon, data being collected, because we
Correct.
wanted both a winter flow and a summer flow, so that we would get a true picture of flow to the plant. So what was required of us is still in progress, because we need to have data collection and analysis. That's my first point. And the second permit renewal in process is tied to Site 7, correct?
But it's tied to Site 7, but you're going to see those numbers change for the treatment.
Right.
And it should be published in the middle of the month.
Okay,
But the draft's available for review.
right.
The permit, the draft
The
permit.
permit.
Yes.
Oh.
No, the groundwater permit. But the groundwater permit is driving changes in the numbers I
Yeah.
previously reported.
So I think permit renewal in process should make it clear that it involves Site 7.
Oh, yes.
Okay, John? And then-
I just, the Board of Health every month gets the data from both of our treatment plants. And that West Falmouth plant has routinely been operating just above 2 milligrams per liter. So
Just
even-
above 2.
Just better than the 3. It's been doing
Wow.
remarkably well.
That must be the best in the state.
Wayne?
I just want to ask a question about the exact meaning of TMDL compliance by December 2016. Is that based upon, we do these things and we're in compliance
No.
while we wait for, or,
It's measuring the sentinel stations
Okay.
and other stations. But
Right.
okay, so
They have
that's,
said you can't just measure one station.
Right.
The whole body of water quality
Right.
has to make sense.
right, okay.
Okay, so since Jerry's here, a couple of things that might not be clear. When it says monitor effluent discharge, flow meters installed, I thought it was measuring what was coming into the plant.
No, we know
Yeah.
it's what's coming out of the plant, because that was from the new treatment plant that was built several years ago. That was a system that never worked
Right,
properly.
I remember.
So we never could get a good number of what's leaving the treatment plant to go to the effluent beds.
Okay.
Before, we got a reasonable number by adding up the influent pump stations, the septic load, and the load from the school.
Right.
But ideally, they want what's going out to the beds.
Okay.
My other que-
Aren't they
other
the same unless there's an awful lot of evaporation or leakage?
que- well,
No, they're not necessarily the same.
There's the sludge in the water, so.
The sludge in the water and things
Or
like
water
that.
in the sludge. Anyway,
Now, the other question, the 30,000 gallon per day in process, where is that
That's,
program right
I think
now?
we're
Is that-
getting ready to release the contract on that.
Okay, so it
Some
has-
of the other things have overcome this, but I mean,
But
Okay.
Contract for repairs, or you're
Yeah.
going out to bid?
No, bids to repair.
Going out for bid to repair?
Yeah.
Okay, and that optimization, where is that?
That plan was submitted to the state.
Okay.
I don't think they commented on it, but the fact that we're getting less than three, it was just a series of requirements
That's great.
that was developed for the settlement agreement.
I remember, and they wanted us to do some things that Amy thought we didn't need to do,
Oh, they were stupid.
or that were stupid, yes. And you're telling me that they have now concluded that we were right about that?
No, that we have not gotten approval, because we didn't quite do the things, I don't think, what they wanted us to do.
Even though we're coming up with a 2.
Okay, still under
Okay.
discussion.
John?
another point, do we know what the date was when the landfill was capped?
It's definitely
90.
verifiable.
And
And there's a difference between when it stopped accepting waste and when it actually got the cap. There's a lag there. You're looking for the date it was capped.
And also, I assume that we have a whole series of monitoring wells down, I mean, that capped landfill is in the West Falmouth Harbor watershed.
Yes, that's correct.
And it seems to me that's, we haven't paid much attention.
Yeah, there are wells around it.
Oh, I wasn't sure. I was
Yeah.
assumed there would be, but
Yep.
I
good
would
point.
think that those wells would be something that we should have some considerable interest in.
Ron?
Yeah, just saying, I'm looking at the permit now, and it says it's maximum of 700,000 gallons a day, which is a little higher, but according to the permit.
No.
And for total nitrogen, the maximum per day is 10 milligrams per liter that can be issued. So that's like 22 kilograms per day that could be discharged from the plant as a maximum. But the average has to be 3. We're doing it 2 or better than that, which is great. And it's 9,132 pounds per year, which is really based on the 3,
Right.
basically, right? 3 milligrams per liter. So, but the daily load cannot exceed 22. If we ran the whole thing at the maximum level of 10, that equals 22 kilograms per day. In other words, if it wasn't running at 2 or 3, or let's say we had a bad day, the maximum we could do, according to the permit,
But
would be 10.
they don't account for it that way. They don't sit there
Yeah.
and worry about whether on a bad day we discharge 22.
I'm just telling you what the state has told
I
us.
know, but
okay?
but it's how they interpret that that's very important.
Well, that's right, of course, but
All right, any other questions or comments on this
Well,
series of?
At some point, can somebody put into context for me the first bullet there? I mean, what does that mean?
We're going to actually get to that later in the presentation.
That's the bottom line,
Right, so we're going to,
even though it's the top line.
and we're going to talk about that. So shall I continue?
Yeah, keep
Yeah.
going now.
aren't we
Okay.
there already?
So if you've got this 8,500 kilograms per year as the expected amount that you have to remove, we've been looking at traditional and non-traditional alternatives. Before I get into that, I want to address Steve's question. One of the big changes in the West Falmouth Harbor watershed are these improvements to the wastewater treatment facility, because I will just go back and remind you on slide number 5 in your handout too, that the flow was assumed to be 0.4 million gallons a day, so 400,000 gallons per day when the MEP did it, but a nitrogen concentration of 23.5 milligrams per liter. They assumed that that was the present load going into the watershed. So we are now, groundwater discharge permit later, looking at 2 and a flow number of around 450, who knows?
We'll find out soon.
We'll find out,
Yeah.
and that was exactly the point. So to put this in context, there has been a fundamental transformation of the current condition, so to speak, between the MEP report and what we're experiencing right now. And so.
A huge reduction.
A
Yes,
huge
exactly.
reduction.
And we're waiting for that to hit the watershed now?
And we're waiting for it to hit the watershed.
Right.
And it is expected by model runs, you know, that we talked about when I talked about history. We've got an approved comprehensive wastewater management plan, and as part of that you folks were all a part of, there was research done and model runs done for West Falmouth that showed that with the improvements to the wastewater treatment facility, it was really, really close to meeting TMDL compliance. So that's some of the planning history. And so where we are now is looking at the monitored data from the Sentinel stations and looking at what else needs to be done to get it to that 0.35 milligrams per liter at the Sentinel stations. And so it's kind of it's in process. It's sort of an ongoing effort because of the groundwater discharge permits and the settlement agreement. So that's where we are.
Good.
So it looks like, I hear you saying, we're on target to meet the TMDL by December of
We're
2000.
Yeah.
We're close.
We're
Yeah,
close.
close.
But that's a problem because you're talking about a small change in a big number. You know, there's this huge reduction.
Yeah.
But if it's huge or huge plus delta or huge minus delta, that, I mean, if you're close,
But you get to that
if you,
later on here.
okay, maybe you get that later on.
Well, I don't talk about what he's talking about, which is the idea that when you monitor at the Sentinel station, there's a standard deviation in that number, but there should be a trend. So the numbers have to trend.
No, that's not what I'm getting at. I'm
Okay.
getting at, you clearly expect this huge reduction because the people running the wastewater treatment facility are doing such a fantastic job getting the milligrams of nitrogen per liter way down, and the flow is less than was expected. But when I hear you saying it's
Well, it
close,
could be more.
I hear you then, if one of those big numbers, a reduction by a factor of 20, or whatever it is, I'll just pick, what is the factor?
10, yeah.
I think you have to realize, we've already monitored this past summer, and the number was not that good, but it was only one number. The BBC went out and monitored for us. We got a number for the Sentinel station this summer.
Oh,
Only one.
only one.
It wasn't that good. But that doesn't mean anything because it's the trend. We're gonna have to get several years to see. Hopefully, you know, next year it will be a little bit better.
What I'm getting, okay, so I think the huge reduction is something like a factor of 10, right? From in the 20s
Oh, I
to
see what you're
2.
saying.
From 23
But
to
if
2
it's
is what
really a
gonna
factor of 9, or if 10 gets you there and it's close, but then if it turns out it's not a factor of 10, it's a factor of 9, then you didn't make it.
Well, that's why,
Well,
that's
in
why
other
we're,
words-
That's,
Steve, that's why we're going through all these
Okay,
other
and so
okay.
the idea is
options.
if you don't get it, go ahead, Virginia.
Yeah, right, we need to go on to these other options. There's a problem with just doing math, because, okay,
Exactly.
so,
It's a model.
obviously, we know that we are doing a much better much better effort at reducing the nitrogen at the plant. But the plant is still a considerable distance from the water, from the
Right.
Mashpaka Creek and from the Sentinel station. So you have this time lag for the improvement to show up. And so far, we're not sure that the improvement has showed up. At the same time, we're looking at the Sentinel station itself, saying, waiting for the improvement, waiting for the improvement. And it's the Sentinel station that's going to be the pass or fail. So even though we've done a terrific job at removing stuff at the plant, until the proof comes through and the
Absolutely.
concentration
No,
falls.
that's completely consistent with what
And-
I'm saying.
and that 200
I'm saying you won't know in time, because a whole lot of the things on this slide can't be implemented by December of 2016 at the rate we do things. And that's not that we're
Well,
slow, it's just the way things
That
go.
is a great segue into, let's talk about what we actually have
yes.
implemented.
You're right.
Because we've implemented these. We have a fertilizer control bylaw for nitrogen. It's been implemented for a couple of years now. And letters get sent out, and it's compliance-driven enforcement. It's not a huge amount, but it's real, and it's done, and it's happening. Stormwater management practices, I actually did talk to the Stormwater Department of the Engineering Division of DPW, and they have not implemented any best management practices for nitrogen removal. So there haven't been stormwater.
And the state is the major culprit here.
Right.
All of
Yes.
28A
Exactly.
goes right into where the boat ramp is in West Falmouth
Yep.
Harbor. So they've collected everything, and when they were in the process of doing that, we complained and they told us the state doesn't have to worry about stormwater inputs.
Well, that's going to change.
It has changed, they lost a major lawsuit,
Yeah.
the highway department. But one thing in the first one, remember, the fertilizer control, the closer you are to the water, the more impact it's gonna have on water quality. So that although we may say, so the people we focus on are really the people, and I don't know, pick a number, 500 feet, 600 feet.
Right.
Right.
And there's a prohibition against any fertilizer within 100 feet.
Yeah, for the
You
benefit-
can't fertilize.
For the benefit of the reporter here, Falmouth passed the toughest bylaw in the Commonwealth because it bans completely, within 100 feet of any water body, the application of any fertilizer.
Of any nitrogen.
Nitrogen, thank you for the correction.
Sorry.
But all this nitrogen fertilizers are for sale, and people are, I mean, what do you have for enforcement? I mean,
Well, you can get into that. Here's what Falmouth has done. They send out letters to every property owner saying, this is a law, the Conservation Commission also puts in every order of conditions. They tell us they do. Nothing to be applied within 100 feet. And in the letter, it says this is an enforceable bylaw, and the answer is that we enforce it the same way we enforce every other bylaw, which is if the proper agency gets a complaint, it goes out there and enforces it. But it's more than any other places.
So somebody has to call it and complain that
Yeah.
my
Yes,
neighbor's putting fertilizer.
yeah. We don't have the ability to just sort of circulate iron and see who's fertilizing the lawn.
This is really a long-term educational process.
Exactly.
It's the voluntary, we're hoping becomes a way of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the fertilizer piece.
And we're also, shellfish is actually going into West Falmouth in very, very large numbers. We relay 600,000 juvenile oysters. Oysters have gotten to about 1.5 inches in the first year of growth from the Little Pond demonstration project into West Falmouth Harbor, where they get to be 3.5 inch oysters, beautiful hand-sized shellfish that are then harvested by commercial and recreational shellfishers. We had a hugely successful harvest this year, and I did that again next year. In addition to that, DMES is doing a reef. Matt Weeks has sort of taken ownership of this concept of doing a reef and is doing a little project right in Mashpaka Creek to look at the viability of that next summer. He's thinking about buying the seed through DMS, and that whole process is going. So there's some shellfish in pretty real numbers going into West Falmouth Harbor right now. In terms of permeable reactive barriers, the town did a very extensive study and found the depth to be sort of prohibitive in the West Falmouth area. So that didn't look like a very viable demonstration project for PRBs. In terms of IA systems and eco-toilets, we have embarked, we had a notice to proceed on a demonstration project that was funded by the Massachusetts Estuaries Project, a $250,000 grant called the West Falmouth Harbor Septic Shoreline Remediation Project. We couldn't think of a shorter name, we're the government.
The dirty 10 didn't go.
And that's
Filthy 40.
Or give the bay a push, or give the harbor a hand, because it's the West Falmouth Harbor. That's what happens when lawyers name things. And it's very exciting because we are working in collaboration with the Buzzards Bay Coalition, identifying homeowners in the along the West Falmouth shore that would like to put in an innovative alternative septic system or eco-toilet and receive a $10,000 subsidy to do that. So that's a very exciting project where we have gotten our vendor list solidified. We have a meeting tomorrow to continue that process. But this is a very important demonstration to see if we can get systems that are 12 milligrams per liter or less. I don't know if I missed any important parts of that.
It's just that we're doing it with the Buzzards Bay Coalition, which is a terrific partner on this, because a lot of their members are going to be asked to join this operation.
Live in West Falmouth.
Here's hoping.
So,
Just the last two things very briefly
Yeah,
is,
go
as
ahead.
part of the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, centralized collection and treatment and the ocean outfall were part of what were in that document. So I just wanted to include those.
Can I make my point now?
Sure.
Try to make it, okay.
Yeah.
So, all these things are great, and I wouldn't change them at all, okay? This is not a comment intended to put down any of it. The comment is that they're already either started or accomplished or won't be done before 2016.
Disagree.
The plain,
Yeah.
Well, in other words, I'm saying, I'm
IA
talking about
systems
the,
are going in this summer,
This summer, it has to be in.
2015.
I mean, the policy won't change. We're not going to say, hey, we've gotten all these things going, and somehow by ESP, we know we're not going to make the TMDL, so let's spend more money and do X.
No.
We can't do any of that.
Back up.
We're already, the protocol has been set of what we're going to do.
December, it is what it is. That's when we explain to the state what we've done and what we're planning on doing. I don't think you're going to see on January 1st next year a big fine or anything like that. They have to, we did what we were asked to do in the permit, okay? We've done the monitoring. Now's the time to say what the next step is. And I can't speak for the state, but it's unrealistic to say they're going to come down and say, okay, you're not paying $10,000 a day for violation.
Oh, I think that's the answer to my question. In other words, meeting the TMDL by December of 2016 means a good faith effort.
No, it meant, but if we don't meet it, we tell them what we've done.
Okay,
And
in
hope that they will
addition,
listen
I
and
want to
give us some
point you,
time.
if you go back to the groundwater discharge permit, the lawyers thought of what you were thinking of.
Right.
So if you look at the second bullet and you look at the last line, add 3 milligrams per liter, parentheses, as practicable. So the point is, we have done as good faith and effort as we can to
Correct.
achieve
Right.
that. But it is recognized that we might not quite have achieved it. And then we have to,
But that's a sub-part of the TMDL. That's one of the things that everybody agrees
That-
should be
no-
done to help
Right.
meet the TMDL.
those words, as practicable, when you read the document, occur in every single deadline.
So do they
Okay.
apply to the first line too?
That is my understanding. Right. We're to meet the TMDL December 16, blah,
As
blah, blah,
practicable.
as
But
practicable.
we have to comply with the permit. The permit is the enforceable document, not the TMDL.
Right, and there, the permit says so many kilograms, and that's the max. So much flow, and that's the max, and so on.
No, that part I
So
understand.
that
I was
part
getting
is
at the
totally
TMDL part.
controllable.
It's entirely possible we could meet that, and that sentence
Exactly.
station may not reflect it.
Exactly, that's my point.
And that is something that everyone's going to have to deal with when it comes.
When
But-
it comes.
But we will have done everything we had to do.
Right. I have only one question
Right.
involving that. I believe the new, the reduction that the plant was modified to reduce nitrogen in 2005, I understand.
Yeah, that's about.
Between 2005 and the time that you had the 3 milligrams maximum discharge required, what were you
We had some
discharging?
hiccups in between, but we were still doing very, very well at one time. I think the average was 5.6, because we had some big hiccups.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more in the nitrogen coming down right now than there will be later on
Yes.
in a couple of years.
It-
So maybe in 2016 we can explain if we don't quite meet it, we're gonna, we'll be there.
Okay, Ron.
Okay, a couple of points on this is that up until 2005, the average coming out of the plant was 23.5 milligrams per liter,
Yeah.
according to this. Okay. Then I guess then this data from the time they went into operation 2005 and 2009, as Jerry said, the figure here is 5.2 milligrams per liter. But during this time period, that's like 3,750 days, okay, since this thing, and now it's doing better, right? So the distance is about the same. It's like 3/4 of a mile from West Falmouth Harbor. So if that load, that 23 milligrams per liter load is now fully discharged, however it's broken down in the ground, still we had the 5 then going, and now we've got less than that.
Right.
So there's a chance we could actually reach something that's quite reasonable at the Sentinel Station.
Correct.
That the question is, though, is that, again, you talk about all these shellfish and everything, if they go out and take a measurement at the Sentinel Station in January, which is when the date of the day, the shellfish effect
should be good.
will be gone.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But this change over this time period, and especially now, what the department's doing with operating the plant at those levels that John reported, puts us in a pretty good place.
Right.
We actually may see something.
Right.
In fact. So it is. It just depends on how much benthic flux and other stuff may have been building up and this kind of thing, because that's sort of extraneous to this issue or whatever's coming in. So I think that things could be quite interesting by the time we get there.
Especially if our flow is significantly less than what we're estimated in at around 500.
That would be great.
If it's significantly more, we're in trouble.
Exactly.
But if the flow monitoring says we're at 400 and 450, we go back and do some more arithmetic. And we're going to have to do the arithmetic. The load is a load which gets there.
And we declare.
Right.
victory.
And then what happened?
Yeah.
Just along those same lines, the 30,000, is it 30,000
Yeah.
gallons per day I&I reduction? What are we putting in, what is it now? Is that a target, the 30,000
It's a
gallons
target.
per day?
Yep, it was a target that was reached at around the table by the people at the table. And that was a reasonable target that, without spending a
I'm
lot
not
of money.
arguing with the target. My question is, what are we putting in today? Will that affect our
I-
overall
There'll be
load?
30,000 less.
Well, it's going to be more than, whatever the
We'll see
difference
what
is
the reduction
between
is.
what we're putting in now and what the target is.
In theory, that infiltration doesn't bring much nitrogen with it. That's salt water leaking into the system
That's
in
true.
Woods Hole.
Right.
And
That's a
so
good point.
what they're trying to do is just get that flow out of the plant. And so.
But we are
this-
limited by
this-
gallons per day.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a
And so we're
combination.
not eliminating nitrogen that way, we're eliminating flow.
Right.
Okay.
Why do they care both about the flow per day and the concentration? Why don't they just say so many kilograms of nitrogen per day?
How you
They
write a
like to
permit.
hedge their bets.
To enforce a permit, you need a day, daily information
They
to
always
get
do it both
reported
ways.
on. And it's concentration and flow.
And flow, it's always done.
But if by some magic you were able to run the plant at 1 milligram per liter,
Right.
would they care if you then had the appropriately higher amount of flow?
Yes. Yep.
Is
That's why I spoke
there
about
some physical
multiple-
reason why that's bad?
Multiple constraints.
You're not going to get us to defend the way DEP does this.
Well, one of the things
Right.
is, unless we sewer West Falmouth, close your ears, Eric, we can't put any more flow than, it's going to be 450, I think, into the treatment plant. So there's multiple restrictions. That's why we're coming out with Site 7. We might even get flow from the treatment plant to Site 7.
I will confidently predict hell will freeze over before we sewer West Falmouth.
You can quote him on that.
All right, let's keep
It's
going.
awfully hot in here.
Yeah.
Just open a window, or, I know you tried to turn the heat down.
It's, no,
Oh,
No,
I'll
I
get
don't know
the-
what
go
that
ahead.
is.
There is a janitor, but I don't know if you can
We're all
even
gonna
get
fall
in there.
asleep.
Yeah.
I can look for him.
All right, so we talked about that. So possible next steps, and this is the last slide, is model runs to identify, and this, maybe this was the slide that I was hoping to see. The idea is that we're gonna have some better metrics of what's going on at the plant from, thank you, Jerry, from the flow meters, et cetera, and that's gonna go into the hydrodynamic model to help see if you do this and you do that, and you do this and you do that, would you get to the TMDL? And then we've got our West Falmouth Harbor IA eco-toilet project. There are land use controls. We've got the fertilizer program. There's the potential for IA systems and thinking about management structures. We've got additional groundwater investigations to understand the groundwater flow, those kinds of things. Other ideas. One of the things that I didn't mention, that I meant to mention way back here, and I'll do this very briefly, is land use and build out. And I'm thinking maybe this is a pretty good slide to talk about it, even though it's not listed. There's a build out number. Where did I do? Did we? Yeah, I didn't get the build out number in here. Sorry. In the presentation, there's not a build out number, but in the MEP report, there is a build out number. There's a rainbow spreadsheet that shows build out. And those numbers we've seen for different watersheds going along. And they're what is called a theoretical build out. So MEP's approach is to take every parcel and max out what could possibly be built there and calculate the flows for that maximum amount, and that is the build out. And what we have found from some other CWMP work that Ray Pierce did is, and in other places, and our own common sense approach to this from looking at fiddlers and rands and some other places, is that theoretical build out is a huge number. And what's called practical build out is a much smaller number of kilograms, because the practical build out is likely less than what could, if everybody built out to the four corners of their lot to the maximum extent possible, what would likely happen? And so in West Falmouth, in West Falmouth, I had a chance to look at the rainbow spreadsheets, and two of the areas that had quite a significant load, it was over 600 kilograms per year from the technology park area, from maybe 10, let's call it, parcels, because it was assumed they were going to build out to the maximum extent on the four corners of the lot. And then there was another 133 kilograms from lots within the West Falmouth watershed that built out. So those are two very large numbers that we've seen the same thing in Wild Harbor, as I said. So the theoretical build out is a very large number here, and that is why under the possible next steps, we look at things like land use controls. Where could that build out practically occur? How would it really occur? And are there any management structures for that, as opposed to this sort of big crazy number?
And to be even a little more optimistic about it, some of these land use controls are already in place. And the MEP people either didn't know about them or didn't factor them in sufficiently, including in the tech park and including any subdivision of 5 acres or 5 lots. All of those folks are going to be doing alternative additional systems of some kind under current law. So it's not like this is something, this is not a stretch.
When they calculated those build-out figures, let's say of 600 kilograms per year, what were they assuming was going to be done? Were they assuming this was with state-of-the-art IA systems at 10 milligrams per liter?
26.25 milligrams per
26
liter.
oh, they were
That's
assuming
right.
26.25.
For everything.
Plain old
Okay.
35.
Yep,
Okay.
that's a good question. Yep.
Yeah, we have to remember that this was 2004, and data is actually older than 2004. So much has happened in the last decade.
Yes.
We were some of the early reports, and so there really is a time lag and an information lag here.
And one thing that's very interesting, sorry, Ron, is that if you look at the tech park, there hasn't been any development since 2004. So it's 10 years, 11 years later. There hasn't been growth there and expansion since the MEP report. So none of the build-outs occurred.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, Tech Park by itself is limited, right? The way it's laid out.
Yeah, they've only
It's a
got
lot less dense than what
Right.
the theoretical build-out
That's
would have been.
exactly.
Yes,
It's all 4-acre lots,
Yep.
and they're all sold except one, so it's pretty well
Well, I didn't know that. Don't see a lot of buildings in Tech Park, that's why.
4-acre lots, yeah. Well, it was because of the topography and the rocks. They had to make the lots big enough so that there would be room for septic systems and driveways and.
So Tech Park is built out.
Well, it's sold.
Yeah, they may
Not built out.
They may not all be built out, but they're also.
Okay.
There's about 6 or 7 unbuilt lots.
Yeah.
Right. But I think they're all, I think he's right, except for one.
And
Sold.
So, Ron,
And then the other point is that for those areas that could be built out, we have that, the bylaw now that says up to 5, up to 5 acres.
Exactly.
You've
Cape Cod
got-
Commission.
You have to put in your own treatment system. So
Right.
all these calculations are based on
Right.
Title 5.
Old knowledge.
Old,
exactly.
yeah, old.
Plus, any development that has to go to the commission will find itself putting in IA systems.
What did the ice rink have to mean?
The ice rink had to do an IA system. It was a fast system, and it got 19 milligrams per liter. So,
19.
well, the best.
It's better than,
It's DEP approved. That's the only
Yes.
systems that are approved right now by DEP are approved to get 19 milligrams per liter.
That's true, okay. So,
Does it actually do that or better than that? Sometimes it's better.
yeah.
okay.
Some of those fast
We have a lot to do.
systems
We need to-
do
Okay.
better.
Yeah.
Some of them
All right,
do
any
more.
further discussion on the West Falmouth MEP report, potential alternatives for this watershed? Hearing none, thank you once again, Sia, for keeping it simple and keeping all the pieces in play. Next item is the proposed 2015 shellfish budget and vote.
I don't get a break tonight, do I?
Right?
The party's just beginning.
Right.
Jerry, now you can close it.
I knew someone was
But
gonna say.
boy, that
and I
really
was gonna say
helped.
it'd probably be a woman, but I didn't want to be sexy.
Well, there's only
He
one.
knows he's going to say the wrong thing.
Thank you.
That's okay for our listening audience.
understand
Be
that one. There's
well
a-
appreciated.
So, great, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, you all have received, I sent on Tuesday the budget. I have in your packet a revised budget. And there is a small revision. And the revision has to do with the Quistit brochure, which I also gave you. So why don't we start, let's do the complicated stuff first, and then we'll do the simple stuff.
Which is which?
It'll have an extra 200, it says, just above total, it says Quistit brochure printing.
Okay, I don't have
If
it.
you're looking at that.
Notice the addition of 200, that's the
You-
one?
You've got the one.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
So it's not a substantial change, and maybe I'm making this more complicated. I added $200 because we have a brochure that you folks did see a while ago from Division of Marine and Environmental Services. There's a great interest from the Quistit Land Trust to have information material about this Quistit relay and what's going on there. To inform, I mean, they get a ton of visitors, and they have a lovely kiosk that's got a place for brochures that has a little cover on it, and they want to stock it with information about this project. And so I was hoping the board would agree or the committee would agree that that would be a worthwhile way to spend a couple $100. But let me go through the big picture now. Conversations with DMES, who are managing the project, they would like to grow 2 million shellfish. They want to keep it at 2 million shellfish in Little Pond for the year 3 of the demo. The shellfish prices are $12.50 per thousand, so 2 million seed are $25,000. I'm going to go through the total budget first and then the breakout. So we don't need any equipment. We have plenty of equipment. The labor is a combination of the propagation manager and the patrol. And you can see that below, $6,000 for the patrol and $18,720 for the project manager. And then there's disease and environmental testing, which involves oftentimes multiple tests of multiple relays, because every time we go out and in of places, and if you get a negative test, it can be higher, and it's really tricky to know how many different tests we're going to have to do. So that's what that is. So the total budget to run the program for our third year of the demonstration is $53,720. There are two contributors to that budget number, and that is the Water Quality Committee, hopefully, if you guys choose to do so, and then Division of Marine Environmental Services. DMES has committed to $12,500 for $1 million of the seed, and the project manager position, which is the $18,720, which leaves the Water Quality Management Committee looking at $12,500 for half the seed, the $6,000 for the patrol, because that's overtime, and $4,000 for the testing and the $200 for the brochure printing, so $22,700 would be the total required. In the water quality budget, remaining in the line item from Article 17 for shellfish, there is a total of, let me get this right, $14,036.73. And that would mean that the committee would need an extra $84,6327 to fully fund the $22,700, I guess it's $86,63, to fund the $22,700 that's required for next year.
Got a motion on that?
Sure. I'll move that 8,000, I'm just going to round it off, 8,700 of this budget total of 22,700 be taken from the storm water line item in Article 17, and the balance would come from the same budget that we've been using all the way along.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for those figures, conversation, comments?
I mean, I think it's this is a kind of a going through a cusp here, basically going over a threshold because of the Department of Marine and Environmental Services now becoming not just a partner, but also supporting it financially, significantly, actually putting in more money than the Article 17 is, right, which is an impressive part of a transition of moving toward a sustainable operation. I think in that way, at least, it's a very positive step, and the interest is great to see. The only question I have is on this patrol. I have a couple other questions, but on patrol, $6,000 that's coming from our budget, but they do the patrolling. Mm-hmm. So
it's overtime.
It's just interesting. Oh, it's overtime.
It's overtime.
Oh, it's overtime.
Okay. It's at night, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And weekends,
And weekends.
And on weekends, and they spent $5,900 last year, so we're getting a bargain because they're doing Quissit now.
Right. I'm not questioning that. I was just thinking that, well, but since it's overtime, it's necessary for us.
It's not in their budget, so if we don't fund it, you don't get it.
Right.
Right.
We have
Good
to-
question, though.
That's
Very good question.
The other thing is and we had a bit of C and I had a bit of an exchange on this, is that there's an additional $50,000 a year for the monitoring program, and we had gotten a grant for last year and have applied for one for this year again. Does that happen?
We were thinking about requesting a grant for next year.
From the same source, right?
Yep.
The
Cape Cod.
CCDC?
collaborative. Or
Collaborative.
Collaborative.
Collaborative. Okay.
Yeah, the
Okay.
29 came from this economic development.
So, and otherwise, this is the total cost. No one else, there have been no other expenditures for this program except for what's
C
here.
is time.
And how much is that?
Well, we could look it up.
and
I mean, theoretically,
Well, it's part of the project cost.
we can calculate it.
I'm not sure it's been broken down.
No.
How many
Fine.
hours you spend on shellfish in a year. But
No.
it's,
Although a ballpark you could do.
well, it's overhead, essentially. I mean,
Yeah, that's a better way.
I mean, I think you should take my time and divide it by all the different projects I work on. And I spend about an equal amount of time on all of them, honestly.
I know about 3 or 4 you're working on, so.
Well, if
I
it's
think-
important, we could come up with.
Ten.
I think that what she's doing is part of the project, and that for our understanding of the cost, we should know what that is. It's part of the,
But no one's
Yeah.
gonna work as economically as SEA if we had to go out and hire other people.
I'm not saying one
So
way
it's
or
the best
another.
case.
It's just
It is the best case.
the best case,
Why,
yeah.
thank you,
Right.
Jerry.
Well, no, it's
but-
true if we had to go out and.
Plus, I know she doesn't charge for all the time she puts into it either. So the thing is, it would be good to know just as an idea, because that would give us a sense of,
Well, saying it's a best case is a compliment to SEA,
yeah.
but it's a warning about the long-term ability to run it in an economical way.
In DMES. has to
Because at
start
some
looking
point,
at it.
SEA will retire.
Well, frankly, at the end of the 3rd year, this whole business is going to be theirs.
Yes.
Well, and that brings me to my other question. So this is the point at which we've used up all the, I take it, Article 17 shellfish money.
Yes.
And are starting-
And a little more. Like-
And starting, right, we've
Yes.
crossed over.
We've crossed
Right.
over.
So
Yep.
next year and any subsequent years, all of the Water Quality Management Committee column
Well,
would
this-
have to come
Well,
from
this
somewhere
is
else.
the 3rd year.
Remember, we had to do it for 3 years.
Oh, okay, so it's,
So at
To
the end of
present the
so
information.
we're done.
Other than for monitoring, that comes under a different
Right.
line item, if I
Correct.
remember correctly.
Unless we want to continue, it depends on what happens. If it wants to continue.
Is DMES thinking about how they can make a little bit of money out of this through permits? So are they thinking of that?
well, then I'd say this,
Worth a
then,
whole lot of money to the people who are getting those oysters.
They should be.
Yeah.
yeah, if we have all our, if the shellfish demonstration program ends at the end of this 3rd year, we'll, presumably it's been run right, we'll have all the data that we need to decide where shellfish fits in for solving the water quality problems in Falmouth. And comparing the different technologies, we've always said it's nitrogen return on investment. So one of the pieces of data that we should have is how much would it cost going forward. So during this 3rd year, some effort should be made to collect that. And then correct for having people
Yeah.
less competent than SEA running it, so you
But
increase
it
the
gets hard
cost.
'cause there's startup costs which don't have to be repeated every year.
Yeah, no, you have to do it right, but you have to do it.
Well,
is all
I
I'm saying.
invite you to be the one to do it.
The other thing is, remember, we
'Cause
may
it's a lot of
move to
work.
other watersheds, and the demonstration's gonna start all over in another water, to a certain extent.
Right.
This is replicatable, but if we go to a different watershed, it may be slightly different, other than the transfer.
But I do agree with Steve that, and actually Ron in prompting these questions, we should try and get a handle on, at least ballpark, what it costs for these 3 years to develop the information to prove, to show, maybe not prove, but to show to DEP that it is an effective program and it has nitrogen removal.
Right.
So I do
Yep.
think we should be thinking in this 3rd year
Right.
that we have something that pulls these things together.
I'll start tracking
Well,
my
I
time.
think
on
it's
shellfish.
fair to say right now that this is going to be an element of the town's long-term plan to address nitrogen. I mean, we can see that already. We don't need a 3rd year to prove that. How much it's going to cost in each water body and what the gain is in that water body, it'll be the question. We will need this information to know that. But you're right, we know now we're going to be doing this.
And
We are
who's-
not going to be doing it, but the town of Falmouth is going to be doing it.
Right.
And, you know, what department, like when we were in Mashpee today, they kept on saying shellfish is Rick York's department.
Right.
You know, budgeting, you know, I think he implied budgeting and everything else.
Well, you may be close enough to it that you know intuitively that what you just said is true. But to an objective, skeptical person from the outside,
Yeah.
you want to see numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fair
The-
enough.
The
Okay.
case needs to be made.
We get
And
it.
I was going to comment on that. I think one of the a really valuable lesson of the Little Pond demonstration project is the 2nd year of growth really makes a big difference. That sort of take home. And so what we tried to do in managing the project after the 1st year where we had this big aha, that boy, we really better get that, that second year is where all the nitrogen is filtered. We intentionally looked for relay sites where we might be able to have some quantifiable results on the water quality. And so we're in West Falmouth, and we're in Quistit, and we're in Green Pond. And so the hope is that we're able next year to look at that more carefully to see water quality improvements. And if we couple those findings, so that the regulators can see some measurable improvement with having a good sense of, you've got capital costs and you've got operating costs. And what you have to do is think about amortizing that over a 20-year life cycle with the gear. And so I already have a spreadsheet that shows the startup, the capital costs, all the gear that we had to buy, and then the operating costs, which is the shellfish that you have to buy every year, and the labor, and then a 10-year replacement rate on your operating costs, and then you can look at a 20-year program. The other part of that is the monitoring. So it's a much of what I do. Much of what I did was to help the program get started, but now that part is running. Now, really, a lot of what I do is I think about monitoring, and I think about the issues surrounding that and these financial questions, that kind of management, which if you were doing a program with non-traditional solutions in the town of Falmouth, you'd have one person looking at all, the PRBs and the shellfish and the IA systems, and it would still be one person who didn't, on the margin, just the shellfish wouldn't be the way you would look at that from a costing perspective. You would look at somebody who helps run the demonstrations, could be an existing town position, and then the actual operating and capital costs. And I think we can do that pretty easily, and then divide by the number of kilograms per million shellfish and have a pretty good dollars per kilogram.
All right, win.
Real close.
Now let's suppose that we have those figures. At what point would it make sense to go to town meeting and say, this is a project we wish to continue. We have good reason to want to continue it because it is having effect in the town, and ask for a combination of going to town meeting, going to the DMES, and going to people to get grants, and to try to set it up so that we continue whatever we're doing after the demonstration project is ended. We don't want to just stop everything after the demonstration project is ended. So we're going to have to go and find a source of funding to continue it. At what point in the process do we have to go to town meeting and present something to them if we want to try to argue we need $100,000 for the next 3 years to do it?
When we approve the O&M budget for the town departments, which is usually spring town meeting.
That shouldn't be difficult to try.
Right. I think we should have a discussion
Yes.
as to how we see continuing, in what shape continuing. To me, this committee is the committee that goes out and basically takes the risks and presents ideas that are kind of on the margin or untested, and develops enough information to show that they're credible. And then I consider the idea matured enough that you'd like to see it institutionalized, so it gets passed to a town government or a town department that then carries it forward, and then we move ahead with something else.
Before 2019, we want to do that.
That to me would be that would be the best outcome.
Right.
I think another dimension to this too is that for not just for Falmouth as well as other towns or other states, is that we have this $150,000 cost basically for monitoring over 3 years. It's more or less $50,000 a year. With that then, if we can work with SMAS and say, okay, what are the key indicators we really need to measure for for expansion of it, so that we don't have to do all this nitty-gritty kind of thing. How often do you need to actually do it? And in most monitoring programs, you find out pretty quickly what you really do need to measure. We're very broadly doing it, and there might be more detailed work this year. I presume there'll be a similar level of detail. But that kind of thing is something that then looks at costs for meeting regulatory requirements, that you would have that type of thing. So I think that the whole, I think that and that's why I think the whole cost dimension is critical for other folks that may be starting this up and trying to get confidence wherever it may be, is to know, what to expect in terms of supervision
sure.
and other things.
John?
The other dimension of this is we have to persuade DEP that this type of project is something that they're going to give us some credit for. And that's going to be a fairly substantial hurdle to get over, I think.
But we are not alone.
Yeah.
No,
I
that's
think
true.
we're all assuming that that's the case, and you're right, it's not a given, but it's,
But-
Mashpee and Wellfleet are
yeah.
Right.
way ahead
but-
of us.
Actually,
that
we're
regard.
ahead of them.
Well, I mean, as far as trying to get credit from DEP.
No, we're ahead because we have,
We- we're
no
gonna
one
have-
else has
we're gonna have
the
the 3
targeted
years.
watershed management plan
That's right.
with shellfish in it, with saying, now how far they'll go with it, we don't know yet, but at least it does have shellfish.
And they proved
There's a
it.
line no other town has that in any document that's
Yeah.
approved
One
anywhere.
of the things on the budget is, we may have to do what you call an expansive set of monitoring, which I agree with, for several years until we see the results of the sewers. For someone may,
That's true.
Well, that's
I
right.
mean, we're gonna have a function of run the model or just do the sentinel stations. So we may see, and then you could say, well, that's gonna be an increased cost to the wastewater division if or whoever's doing the monitoring. So I think the dimension of additional water quality monitoring is interesting to see how much we have to do.
Right, and maybe DEP looks at this and says, so many pounds of shellfish
That's
equals so
That's what
much
we're hoping
nitrogen
for.
removal. And so we won't have to monitor anything except how much they weigh when you took them out.
And that's exactly what the 208 subcommittee on monitoring,
Yeah.
and Brian Dudley is sitting at that table,
Right.
along with a whole bunch of other people. And we've written recommendations, and that's exactly what the recommendations say.
Right. And if that's the case, then, I mean, we're gonna go to the town with each one of these estuaries with a solution that gets to a TMDL in the long term. And each one of them, we're gonna, for the ones that aren't involving sewering, which we expect to be most of them, we're gonna say, it's not gonna have sewering, but it's gonna have A, B, C, D, and E. And one of those is gonna be shellfish, and here's how much the shellfish is gonna take out. And one of them's gonna be fertilizer, here's how much that's taking out. And we'll give them a package, and they say, well, if you wanna implement this package, here's what it's gonna cost you, because you're gonna have to pay for the shellfish, and you're gonna have to pay for this, that, and the other thing. So there'll be a price tag for each water body, and a plan,
Priority?
and a plan for each water
A
body.
priority for
Yeah,
which water
yeah.
body goes first.
Yeah,
A
well,
watershed.
right, yeah,
Well,
and
as
the order
far-
they go in.
As far as paying though, it may end up being ultimately that this is a private sector thing that's supervised by the
Right.
town.
Oh, that'd be
And therefore,
better.
the cost would be wherever that, we just have to see where we can go with this, you know.
Absolutely, right,
Two,
Steve.
two things. The first one may be just saying what Jerry said in a different way, but once we're past the research part of the shellfish project and we're into production or whatever the steady state sustainable thing is, isn't the monitoring required for that the same as required for however you're cleaning up? I mean,
I don't
a
know.
long term, you have to
No, it's gonna be
show
less.
less.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
The
Well, then that's
208
even
There.
better, to the
Yes.
point I was going to make, is that it's not,
Less is better.
it's not a cost that you should ascribe to shellfish.
That's
It's
what I was trying
something,
to say.
Right.
it's
This is-
actually, it's a saving, since you're saying less, that you ascribe to
Right.
shellfish.
It's
But
a
if it had
cost-
been the same, and we're saying it's actually better than that, it doesn't matter what technology you're using. You have to show that you're meeting the TMDL every year
But we have
with some kind of monitoring.
considerable amount of testing done, because our initial premise is we wanted to see if we could see a signal change. And we had this debate, and I think DEP was the one that said, no, you can't measure pounds of shellfish, pounds removed. So, I mean, that was a debate, and we all agreed that, let's see if we can get a scientific signal. And we got some of a signal, and there's probably a debate on whether we can or not, but we don't have to continue this monitoring effort. And I think if you went to Bourne's Pond, it might be a different sampling impact for inlet widening. I think the pond itself may dictate it, plus how many stations in addition to the sentinel stations you want. SMAS is going to argue they want to continue all their stations so they can continue to run their model. And that will be a point of discussion, that should we be doing their
research from.
And paying for it.
Yeah, no, I,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And Eric, the second thing was, which was related to what Ron just said, at the very, very beginning, several years ago, of discussing using shellfish, various people got up in front of this committee and said it could potentially actually have a negative cost. In other words, this is an entrepreneurial thing. People would pay us, pay the town for a no.
Or licenses.
Senior moment. Who's the shellfish guy?
Chuck
Martinson?
Martinson?
No.
No, from Brawley. Paul Brawley from.
John Brawley.
Smolowitz. Said, this could be a business for the town.
Right.
But ever since then, whoever I've spoken to about that has given me pushback. That no, it's not time for that. There are all these regulations.
That's correct.
Permits, we need data.
Ron knows that.
And that's okay. But now I hear people saying that this research part is ending. So
maybe.
my question is, where does the part fit in, or are we saying it doesn't, where we find out, is there a way to get people to pay us to do this? Or do we say, no, that's not going to happen?
Regulations can change. That's DMES. That's a business plan.
But I mean, obviously that affects the cost totally.
Well, I certainly think it will be an aspect that needs to be touched on. And what I hear is a lot of really good information that should be summarized in a report at the end of these 3 years. And then we need to look down several avenues. And so I think we'll need to work, this is now probably 6 months out, maybe 8 months out. We need a working group to begin to put those pieces together.
Matt?
I just want to briefly say that there could be an economic multiplier effect from this that should be considered as well in the scale of
But I'm
how
saying
this
it
thing-
should be not just wished about, but actually
I agree.
researched.
No, you're absolutely right.
But
We-
on that point, there has been a calculation of the economic multiplier effect of shellfish
But I mean
culture.
the details, like
Yeah, I'm just saying that it's like, it's 4.5
Joe
times.
Schmo is willing to pay for a license.
Yeah, 4.5 times above what the harvester sells it for. So it goes, this has been studied several which ways, and that's been in the Northeast. Rhode
The
Island,
economist in the room is.
This is pursuant to the idea that this will create new businesses in the area as a result of that. It doesn't come from the direct multiplier. If you spend $1,000 in Falmouth, the multiplier effect is not going to be very big. But if you do a big business, if you do a business in Falmouth, and that has side effects and side businesses start developing, then you start getting really big multipliers.
Well, just go and have a little discussion with the guy that owns the Clam Man.
Yeah.
He had a very good year.
Just a 5-minute discussion.
I mean, I agree with you that the multiplier can be quite high if you can get
Well, it is.
synergistic. If people start borrowing from banks to do things they weren't going to otherwise do, that's really a big thing. That can be big.
Yeah.
Right, and to Steve's point, if shellfish are being sold to the wholesaler at 35 cents a piece, entrepreneurs out there will be coming in with ideas about how they can participate in this and benefit from it. And it's not something that we will have to invent for them. They'll be doing the arithmetic, and they'll be saying, how can we make this into a profiting venture? And let me tell you how I'd like to do it.
Exactly. New economic activity
Well, I
developing.
mean, if he's buying with 35 cents and selling it at $1.25, I don't know how much.
He's figured it out.
That's 4 times right at the
Right there.
door.
Right
All right, we
there.
have a motion to, the numbers that Virginia gave us about taking it out of the shellfish allocation, and the other allocation was
Stormwater,
8,000 or something.
8,006, I rounded it up to 700.
8,700 from stormwater. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Great. Keep it blue brochure. That was handed out. It wasn't blue. It's not it, but it's the brochure. Did you see one of these?
Do you have a copy? Because I had a question about it.
You have
Should
it.
have been in your
Oh,
packet.
no, wait, this
Oh,
is
was it
all-
in the packet?
the Christopher Harbor Master Plan.
No, it was just
Oh,
sent.
it was sent out but not handed out.
Yeah, it was sort of, it looks like
Right, here it
this.
is.
Oh, you're right. I
Yes.
did not, I didn't, because I didn't
It
want to
wasn't
print.
printed out.
I didn't print it. I just sent it. I
I'd be
sent it-
glad to pass it around if
Okay, it's
Oh,
not,
no,
take a look.
it's not ours.
It's not
I
ours.
I didn't
It's put
make
out
a
by a
copy
different
of
group.
it, because I sent it out
read
on
it.
We have to
Tuesday.
vote on this?
Yeah, this is,
We have to
this
vote
is,
to
That's the
endorse,
Quistit one.
because
This is
they
the
need
keep
a
it
town
blank.
entity in order to put it into the water bills.
damn, Bill, I had a question. Do you have it on your?
They need a town
Yeah.
entity to be the sponsor, so that it can be included.
Wait, is this the same as the Quistit brochure printing?
No.
to
No,
be
No,
done?
no,
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 no.
separate
This is
issue.
different.
Separate issue.
But is it the same piece of paper?
Nope.
No, no, it's coming around.
You guys got this on Tuesday
Yeah.
Yeah,
as
no, I have it.
information
We
for
got
your
it. I have it.
the meeting.
But this
It's-
is the Quistit Harbor.
But that's the Quistit
I
Harbor
looked
one
at-
that
I
was
read it
new.
online, but I just didn't bring it with me.
I haven't looked at it in detail, but
I had a
I
question.
looked at it in detail. You have a
Okay.
question?
My
I'll
first
bring it.
response
Just
is-
give
Do you want
me
me,
a second.
Virginia brought a copy. I didn't bring a copy. Do you
Exactly.
want me to pull it up?
No, I
Yeah.
should.
This is from the group formerly known
There
as
you
Faces. There you go. And they've put together a brochure, they want to print it and pay for it. They need a town committee to be the sponsor
Sponsor.
so that it can go out in the water bills. So is there a motion to do that?
I move that we give them our blessing.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I had a,
Wait, I didn't realize we were
Question.
voting on that.
why does it say clean paintbrushes in a sink, not outside? To me, that
good
doesn't
point.
make sense.
It goes into your septic tank or the sewer in the sink.
Well, but there's oil, paints.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want that in your septic system.
I agree.
Yeah.
So that,
But you also don't want it in stormwater runoff.
You have to take it to the
Directly
toxic
to the
waste
harbor.
place.
I
I
don't
think, I
think,
think the assumption is that they're mostly water soluble.
Yes.
Yes,
That's a
they
good
are.
point.
well, that's an
Yeah.
assumption.
Yes,
that,
but,
But,
it's not
but,
always
and it
true.
turns out to be largely true,
yeah.
having just
Wait,
had a lot of repainting done.
Yeah, but it's not always true.
No.
And even that probably shouldn't be in a septic.
Well, I've been told that latex paint, let alone oil paint, in your septic system is a very bad thing.
Yeah.
So maybe we ought to tell them to reconsider that particular bullet.
Yeah,
I'll bring it to the
Would
committee.
would you like a mic?
Oh, you're with
Let's give
Faces,
her a
not with
microphone.
Porter.
Faces.
Let's give her a microphone here.
Yeah.
Do we have an extra one? I guess we don't.
Yeah, you can use it.
Okay. For the nationwide TV audience, would you identify yourself, please?
Oh, yeah, I'm Mary Hubbard, and I'm with Faces.
Yes.
Or formerly Faces, now Falmouth Watersheds. We wanted to put this brochure in the water bill in the spring. I don't know that there's a better alternative. I mean,
There is, I could,
for latex paint brushes.
sure.
Well, if you wash it with
it-
your hose,
Where would you suggest?
not in your
washing?
driveway, but in your
You know, I've done some
backyard.
professional painting. I can tell you, you spin it out in a bucket, and the water, you just leave the water there. It eventually evaporates. It coats, the paint coats the bucket. You throw it
That's
away.
even better.
And you can throw that in the landfill.
Right.
No, you can't.
There we go.
Yes,
Right, yeah.
or
All right,
trash, that's
fair enough.
Paint
Recycle
backboard
it.
to get rid of paint.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, good,
Talk to any painter.
good
They'll tell
catch,
you.
good catch.
Great catch.
Yeah.
That's a good catch. And that is the best way. But if you don't do that, I still think it's better to dump it in your backyard than in your septic system. But I'm not an expert. That's just what I've been told.
Well, they're saying, don't dump it in the backyard. Right?
No, I think they're saying,
Did you?
Because it washes into the water pumps.
They'll only take oil-based paints at the hazardous waste collection
Right.
place, I think.
That's-
Unless it's a water-soluble paint that has copper in it or something like that.
No, but you
If
just
it
take
dries out, you can throw it
Take
right
the
in
lid
the
off
trash.
it.
yes,
dry,
if it's
yeah,
if it's a,
You don't need to have hazardous
right, if
waste.
it's a
No.
partial bucket of paint, you just let it dry out. But if you're cleaning brushes
Yeah,
and you're not a professional painter, you don't have the brush spinner,
yeah.
that's it.
You can do
Well,
it with
you
your
just do it.
hand. That's not.
So maybe the question is really, which is better stewardship? Dumping the water and the paint in the backyard or dumping it down your drain? I think that's the question here.
Definitely not down the drains.
Well,
And we're,
Faces is saying better down the drain.
Well, why don't we ask Faces to figure it out? It's their brochure.
Well, they did figure it out. That's why they're saying it.
You know, well, you know, it's your brochure, but you've understood the issue that people are thinking about.
Yeah.
So we need a vote?
So we have a motion by Wynn, seconded by Steve, to sponsor this brochure in the water bill.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Is that with the correction or without?
Up to them.
Subject to somebody finding out the best way to do it.
Yeah, we gave them the caveat.
We'll research it and put in the best practice.
Okay.
Keep in mind, if
Acceptable
it
best
goes into your, if you're not on town sewer, which is, most people aren't, it goes into your septic tank.
Yeah.
It depends whether it floats or sinks. If it sinks, it goes out when your tank is pumped.
Yeah.
If it floats, it goes into your leaching field, which is certainly no worse than pouring it in your backyard. It's the same, except it's clogging your leaching field.
Unless it poisons the bacteria.
And it's
Yeah,
pretty
could do that.
non-poisonous, I think.
I don't know what.
And I think it floats.
Jill
Or it's
Holdren had
neutral.
asked me for comments so I'll email this question about the paint as a concern. See what they say.
Okay, did I hear a vote, or were we?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
unanimous.
we're done.
Yep,
Okay,
we're
good.
done.
Wacoit Bay. We had a meeting today with Mr. Gottlieb, who's the selectman in Mashpee, and Tom Fidella, who's the head of the sewer commission over there, and Gwyn and Matt and myself and Sia and Jerry. And it was a frank exchange of views. Would you two like to sort of comment on that?
I made four, you asked me whether I might say a few words. I made four. Yeah, absolutely. One of the issues that we brought up was the Quashnet Municus study, which has been suggested by Brian Howes that we do. I have a copy of it here. I have the thing that was handed out here, if someone wants it, feasibility study. The town of Mashpee says the Quashnet doesn't belong to us. We are passing this on to you. We expect you to do it, and we suggested possibly at the end of the long discussion of that, we suggested, well, maybe we could share the expense, and we said it was going to be part of the discussion later on, but we do think it's a good idea. That's a good idea, and it's part of the larger framework we're putting in. There was a lot of talk about the timing of the CWMP at Mashpee, and
That's your second point,
yeah,
CWMP
the second-
timing?
yeah. There was a lot of discussion during the meeting of and I think you could summarize that better than I could, of the timing of the CWMP in Mashpee and the relationship with the timing of CWP.
Just to clarify, though, the first point, they realize that most of the Quashnet Municus is a system. The Municus is largely in Falmouth.
Yeah.
The Quashnet goes all the way up into Mashpee, and most of the nitrogen contribution into that river comes from development in Mashpee.
Yeah.
So they're not arguing with that point. They just didn't want to assume the whole load for doing a hydrological study of the Municus,
Right.
which is the estuary area.
And SIA gave us the cost that they would do for, that Brian Howes said he would do it for.
Well, just that he had asked for in a grant, but it may be a different scope, and it may,
Yeah.
I didn't talk to Brian today, obviously.
They have a very complicated CWMP proposal
Oh,
that it
makes your head
involves,
hurt.
probably a dozen different treatment plants that need to treat and that need to have discharge sites identified, and not to mention a huge shellfish commitment, not to mention a huge commitment on our part to do something at the Quashnet River. It's a big bag of stuff as a plan goes, and it has not been approved by the state yet, and they are maybe under the false impression that it's going to be easy to get something like this approved. Our experience is that it's not easy, and we told them that. But it definitely won't be done anytime soon, certainly not before their town meeting, where they have a whole political issue about who's going to be in charge of all this. There's a sewer commission, a water commission, a board of selectmen, and they seem to have changed their opinions about what they ought to be doing fairly recently. So we don't know, and they don't know what they're going to be doing until after their town election. So the political part of it, we're just going to have to wait and see.
Another clarification, that it's sort of how they evolved. A lot of the development was private, and they forced them to put in these packaged treatment plants, and they work pretty well, and they're going to tie into some of the other communities that aren't sewered into those packaged treatment plants. So it actually works out, and they've had reviews of it, and it's going to be a well working. It's going to work well for them.
The other piece that they said they will need, or they're pretty sure they will need, is the military reservation treatment.
Yeah.
Certainly for the treatment and the discharge. And from what they're hearing, the military won't be prepared to discuss it for 5 years, is what they said.
Or implement it, yeah.
Implement anything for 5 years at the earliest. So that's an issue for them as to what the status of that is going to be. Steve?
Just a question, I'll make sure I understand. You're not saying that their CWMP is unnecessarily complicated, but that it has to be because their system is complicated, right? Or,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
Not
They
that.
have 10 different wastewater treatment plants.
Yeah, we wouldn't judge it that way, but it happens to be enormously complicated because of this history Matt was talking about.
Right.
There's another sense in which it is less complicated than ours, which is that we have 15 estuaries, only two of which have to be dealt with other towns. They have only 2 estuaries, and they have, each one of those has two other towns they've got to deal with.
Right.
And they're not the same towns in every case. So that gives them, they're far less complicated in the number of different things they have to do. But that is a complication for them to have to deal with.
The other piece in there, to talk about complicated, they apparently have approved CWMPs for some water bodies, but not all. Like what quarter?
MEPs or?
MEPs, right.
You're talking about TMDLs?
MEPs.
Okay.
MEP reports final numbers for some estuaries, but not for Wacoit Bay as a whole, and certainly not for our half of Wacoit Bay. So there's some missing elements here.
Let me say, if I understand it correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, they have had, in 2007, whatever it was, they had, Wacoit Bay East was approved by the DEP. So they have a approved TMDL by DEP for Wacoit Bay East. Wacoit Bay West was originally supposed to be a separate CWMP, but they a separate TMDL, but apparently it was decided that they were going to lump the whole thing together, and we now have, as of 2012, was put out, a Wacoit Bay TMDL technical report, which has been sent to DEP, and nothing has been done on it yet.
Right.
And that covers both east and west, and as they explained to us today, there are some changes in the east that will be made when that is approved. There's some changes in the figures in the east because things have changed since 2007. I was very, I guess it was, who was it? That was, what's his name? Not York, but Andy said that he believed that the reason why the TMDL for Wacoit Bay had not been yet approved by DEP is that they froze the whole process until the
208.
till the judge.
Oh, till the lawsuit
Till the
was
lawsuit
set.
is set up. And he thinks, he's not going to go down the line and say it's absolutely true, but he thinks that soon after that, they will start processing it again, and we can hope that we get Wacoit Bay as soon as possible after that, since that's going forward right now.
Okay.
So am I correct about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And I've looked in some detail at that. I've looked at the rainbow drawing. I've looked through the whole thing. I've read through it. I don't think there's going to be many changes from the technical report to the final report. But I guess we have to have it before we can actually do any planning.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, Matt.
I have looked at it as well, and I have a question about the number of lots that they seem to have on their maps. I don't think they're all, viable lots. They may have been before Some of these properties were taken by the state.
Right, okay, so that, like in all the others, we need to look at how many lots.
Yeah, I'd love to get
Yeah,
a better.
the growth projections are gonna be very different there because
Yeah.
of that factor.
Right.
So, anyway, so they have some good people working on some good stuff. Their shellfish guy is excellent, and he's doing a lot in the water and coming up with a lot of useful information. And
I got
they'll-
questions.
so I think we have
in this area.
the elements of a good cooperative effort, and I think the meeting was useful to that extent. And,
I'd like to say just a few words, a very short word about the 208 requirements. Andy gave an excellent presentation of where the 208 requirements are at this point. And I think the only thing we need to say about that is that somebody's going to need to attend that meeting on the 25th, in the evening of the 25th, at which time the Cape Cod Commission and EPA will be there, and they will explain what is going to be required of us insofar as it is now known. But I think, if I'm correct, that we are going to be required, everybody's going to be required, each town is going to be required to set up some kind of statement about who it is who's responsible at this point. But nobody's going to tell us what we have to do at this point yet. And that's all. So we just have to be there at that meeting.
sure,
I think I could, sorry.
sure.
You want to try to summarize what Andrew said?
No, go ahead.
There's some things that are given. They're going to submit the 208 plan on March 1st. That's a quarter of the date. EPA and the state are going to settle it by September 15th or face a judge. Within 15 days after September, whenever they settle it, someone has to designate a management agency that has the ability to incur debt. Right now, Andy had said the county can't do that. So the implication is that each of the 15 towns, and it doesn't really help regionalization in my mind, would now be responsible as the wastewater management agency under 208.
Which is exactly the way it is now before 208.
Yeah.
But I could think the county may come back with
They-
some other
The county has
they may.
lots of ideas, but
Yeah.
no one in the county is prepared to let them be the entity that either
I
plans
just
these
want to
things
summarize
or
with it, and
finances
it's
these
They
in
don't
this
want it.
document.
And they don't
Yeah.
want to be.
Yeah.
And they
I-
ain't going to be.
I think there's one additional wrinkle there,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
isn't, and that is that there is also a deadline by which each town must declare that it is the responsible agent or the, okay.
I thought that was June 15, wasn't it?
Well, and the point is, if you don't, then the 208 plan gives the state authority to move in and
Ooh, I missed
enforce
that.
that.
Which they have now, in theory.
Yes, in theory, but they haven't.
But they haven't exercised.
They haven't done
So
it.
now they have something
Yeah.
else in theory.
So there is another, and it gets at the issue of if there are towns that just refuse to take action on nitrogen issues.
Oh, I see
don't-
where you're coming from.
I don't think they can refuse any longer.
Well, we'll see. Reports of members and staff. You just heard ours. Matt?
It's good that it comes right on the tail end of the Wacoit Bay discussion. Citizens for the Protection of Wacoit Bay is reviving, and they'll be active throughout the whole CP, Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. So we have a new website, and I'll
great.
pass, this is a press release that we put together.
Great.
Great.
For the press?
Beautiful.
Great.
Any other reports of members and staff?
Yeah, I have one short thing.
Okay, well, you have one?
Okay, yes, I do. This town was a leader in doing the fertilizer control bylaw, and then it was picked up by the county, and it was also done by Orleans, and now the following towns also have fertilizer bylaws: Barnstable, Brewster, Chatham, Eastham, Mashpee, and P-Town. So we're halfway on the Cape to having that aspect dealt with. And I thought that was quite a bit of progress because it happened in about 18 months.
May I point out that the amount of nitrogen which they recommend in most of those is 3.2 pounds per year,
3.2 pounds per
instead
year.
of 1 pound per year.
Ours
Okay.
is one, right?
Ours is one. Well,
Ours
we
is-
have recommendations. Do they have
Twice
a no fertilized zone 100 feet around a water body?
I saw a chart which showed, I should have brought it in. I saw a chart saying, these are all the towns, these are the things that they have in the bylaw.
Oh, okay.
I saw that, I could find it.
Ah, yes.
I mean, the good thing is they're moving forward. They're doing
Yes,
something with
right,
fertilizer.
yeah,
It can
yeah.
only get better.
It can only get better.
Well, to answer your question, I don't think that the model bylaw the commission put together had such a thing, and that's the only one they can adopt. So I think the
Good
answer to your
point.
question is no.
But Mashpee adopted ours.
Well, yeah, Mashpee will then find that they'll run into the same buzzsaw we ran into with the state agency up there, the Department of Agricultural regulation telling them.
Wasn't
it can't be done.
that fixed?
I thought
It
they,
was fixed for us.
Us.
And
Oh.
We were
What are
grandfathered.
these home rule petitions?
Exactly, us, but not, well, Orleans, I think. had
Right,
one.
but do you think, I don't think that they're gonna get the pushback, the AG is gonna get the pushback from the fertilizer lobby the way they did with us. I think they wanted to stop us and stop the whole thing. Once we open once Falmouth opened the floodgates, well, we'll see,
We'll see.
we'll see.
But the model reg didn't have it,
That's right, and the model regs are approved by.
so. Reported members of staff, any others?
I was requested by Tonna Marie from Webner to meet with her and discuss if and when we were going to do an eco-toilet report on the project. And I talked with Sia about this,
I
and
wasn't
I
at the
talked with
meeting.
Tonna Marie. And we agreed that next September, October, and next fall, in other words, about 6 months from now, would be an appropriate time, 6 or 8 months from now, would be an appropriate time to plan to have a report on eco-toilets and several other things. We included a number of other things that could be done at the same time, at the same meeting. Not
Like a
just a report,
conference.
not just a report
The
on Falmouth,
workshop,
but
like the shellfish, you know,
Yeah.
she's doing.
not just a report on Falmouth, but a Falmouth program, but a report on what the county is doing with this, and so forth and so on. In other words, she wants to present something that would be have an interest to everybody in the Cape and maybe elsewhere as well.
Good.
And so that we agreed that we would work on that for September or October.
October, good. Any other reports of members and staff? Review and vote on minutes of prior meetings.
Let's take them.
We've had a couple of hiccups on this.
Let's take them one by one. So first we have the minutes of November 20th, and they required a certain amount of revisions, so we never did get them voted. They've all been sent out
That was
to
the
everybody.
last set that was done.
And then December 4th, and then that December
the last
4th was the last set that Anastasia did.
You mean Alexandra,
I'm sorry, Alexandra, right.
the other Anastasia.
The other,
Right.
so these are both Alexandra minutes that are still pending.
Do I hear a motion to adopt them as presented?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. All right, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Oh, wait, the one I wasn't at, I have to abstain from.
Let's see, you're going to abstain absent. You were not at the one on December 4th.
Fourth, right.
Let the record reflect.
Sorry.
Absent.
I can't endorse
Abstaining.
it.
All right, and John Waterbury wasn't there either.
Wasn't there.
Okay, we got that.
Okay, now you got this other one.
All right, then the most recent one was December 17th. And there were just so many errors in what was sent out that I did another version and sent it out, but everybody may not be ready to vote on
Yeah,
it.
it went out fairly recently.
Yes, so we
Do
could,
you, have we had a chance to look at it? Do we have a strong opinion about whether or not we should adopt it or wait?
my email said,
very
read
literal.
this one.
Every word, you have to watch what you say when she's doing it.
Do you-
But there was a lot missing also. It was interesting, very detailed about
Some
some
things,
points, and other
yes.
things were just
Yeah,
not there.
I know.
Yeah,
But what are you going to do about it other than approve?
I can only say that I couldn't remember well enough what I said to make any corrections that would make any sense.
Oh.
So I would say that we
Okay.
well, I think, in
we're
all
not
honesty,
paged.
that we could handle those minutes at the next meeting, and if there are any revisions, I'm already going to have to do the minutes for this meeting. So could we give any more revisions for the other one to see it?
I wasn't at that meeting, and I wasn't supposed to be at that meeting.
Ah,
so
that's a
I'm
good point.
I'm recused from
All right,
that.
I guess I'm stuck with it.
All manner of things having to do with
Okay,
that meeting.
you're right, you're
We didn't
right.
even read the minutes, because I wasn't
Well,
supposed to.
let's say, if anybody has any corrections, let's get them by the end of the working day tomorrow.
Okay, fair enough. Then,
And then we'll assume if we haven't received them, that they're okay, and we'll bring them up the next time.
very good.
Okay, question of meeting place and date and time.
Oh, yeah.
We have been meeting here for years. It's been suggested that, given that there are relatively few members of the committee who have day jobs,
Let me get Matt back in.
that maybe we could have these meetings in the late afternoon instead of in the dark of night. Say around 4 o'clock. And if that were the case, and we picked a day, we could have it at the Selectmen's Conference Room instead of here. We could have live TV coverage instead of delayed. There's some benefits to this. What's your take?
Would we have to be out by 7 if we did it at 4? Or?
Well, it wouldn't have to be the night that they were in the meeting, that night. I mean, if it was a Monday,
Well,
it couldn't be a
I
Monday.
think it should be Thursday.
Thursday.
I think we should stick with Thursday. And yes, would we have to be out by
Well,
7?
Isn't the Board of Appeals in there? on
Yeah,
Thursday?
but at 5:30 or something, they're in there.
We need to check with the
Yeah.
CBA.
But, yeah.
Let's talk about the general idea of a day meeting.
You mean a meeting before 7? What?
Yes.
I missed that.
Right.
What time?
Well,
No, we haven't
it
decided.
could be any time, but the premise is we don't have to be 7 o'clock at night here.
Well, it's not just the members of the committee, they're all the people that we bring in as guests and possible audience. I mean, for instance, I don't see the live TV versus the delayed as important at all, because who's going to be watching it live at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? I mean, and it would be delayed anyway, right, in addition to
Yeah,
being
they run it
Right.
again.
So
Right,
that's a
but
wash.
the piece that I see is that it will be much better reception. When you do it at the selectman's office, anything that's a PowerPoint is a direct feed
okay.
into.
The technical quality would
The
be.
technical quality will improve both for voices and for presentation.
And the setup and takedown. I think
Well,
it's
that's
something
true.
that FCTV has sort
Yes.
of said, it's a
lot
lot
of
of,
work.
That's a good point. That was
Lot
a
of
good
work.
point.
it's a lot of
no,
work.
I prefer evenings. I mean, right now, there's no way I'm gonna go sailing at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
So this time of year,
But-
it
but
looks like a
you
good
bring
idea.
June up, and suddenly we have a meeting in June at 4 o'clock. I mean, it just depends on,
Mm-hmm.
I would just say that there's certain things that, there are moments that arrive and go,
Sure,
and,
okay.
so,
Maybe we could do it different in the winter and the
That-
summer,
yeah.
something like that. I don't know.
yeah, that would be something.
Because I can see winter, driving around in the dark is a burden.
Yeah, that's the difference between winter and summer is
Yeah.
a good point, and Ron's point is a good point.
Okay.
Next week we're meeting there anyway.
Oh, well, our next
Next meeting
meeting
is there
Right.
anyway.
is, yes.
29th
29th in the selectmen's meeting,
at
Selectmen.
7
7
o'clock.
o'clock.
Right, and that one's totally devoted to the Bourne's Pond inlet opening issues that people have been asked to look at.
Okay. Will there be a meeting then the next week after that on the Thursday the 5th?
I think we should.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
a lot going on.
That's right, and we won't have been able to do any of it on the 29th,
Right.
so that's fair.
And the meeting on the 29th is in the selectmen's.
Right. 7 o'clock, Selectmen's Room.
Would we be able to do it on the 5th in the selectmen's room if we decided we wanted to do it in the afternoon?
We haven't inquired.
Yeah, we can
I'll
find out.
check tomorrow. I
Yeah,
can
we
check
we were trying to
tomorrow's.
get a feedback from the committee for starters as to whether or not that would be agreeable.
I like the idea.
Okay,
Yeah, I do
but I
too.
tend to agree with Ron, summertime. Summertime, we don't want to be there at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, but remember, we usually don't meet in August anyway.
True,
And the next one
Fair enough.
is February 5th?
The next one
all right, we
is
got that
January
piece.
29th.
Motion to
And then
adjourn, Matt?
That's the first week in February, yeah.
Busy.
So moved.
Motions,
Eh,
yeah.
Matt, they're
Second.
taking your job here.
Oh,
So I'll call about an earlier time,
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Sure. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Yeah. The ayes have it. Thank you very much.